Good evening, and don't we get to start on a nice relaxing track today? How is everyone at home doing? I hope you are all well. Today we are going to be having a look at a little bit of wargaming that I got up to a couple of weeks back. There we go. I played several games of Konflikt47. We did have somewhat of a structure, but we were not running this as a proper tournament. So it makes the entry fee a little bit cheaper, as our Konflikt47 group is a little smaller than our bolt action. Solid core of members, of course, so we want to keep the games running, but we have just not as many people coming to the conflict events than the bolt action events, so we're just making it a little bit easier. Nice and relaxed kind of events, nothing too serious, but that doesn't mean that we aren't having a great deal of fun. As you can see here, my army that I brought was the Japanese in the middle there, and I specifically brought quite a lot of mundane units, and we'll talk about my army list first before we talk about each individual games. But I've made a couple of videos recently on the subject of bringing mundane units, what to do with officers, what to do with the other HQ options. But specifically here, I've got quite a few just regular mundane units, the ones that I think really sell themselves in conflict. So not just a rifle squad with a light machine gun, but squads that are specifically set up to compete in Konflikt47. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to jump in on the stream, and it seems like my stream information is completely absent, so I hope you can all hear me. Yep, that's not displaying anything. It's not even displaying a 0, so well, we shall see about that. Well, what I can do, just as people pop in, I can talk about my army list, I guess, because that's one of the fundamental parts of the game, and particularly the list that I brought today is very. The list I chose, I put the units in to be. To test a few things out, particularly the stuff that I've said in videos recently when it comes to mundane units. And if you have a look, my conflict Japanese are very brightly painted blue, so you can see this few units of blue here. But my bolt action Japanese are kind of a mix of greens and browns and white, so you can see all the way around here and all the way here, there's a lot of those mundane units happening. So I shall start by talking about the platoon structure, and I've actually got 3 platoons, which is rather a lot for Konflikt47. I see most people are actually going with 2 or even 1 platoon. Some people are just filling out a assault platoon and not worrying about anything else. A few people are taking an assault platoon and then an armored platoon or the walker platoon just to get vehicles. But that's just the most common. I'm very rarely seeing anyone take any other platoons. But today I have my assault platoon, as of course you would expect. Vehicles on the side means I obviously have an armored platoon. But at the back here is an artillery platoon. And one thing that the artillery does... one thing that some of the platoons, like the artillery platoon, does that the armoured platoon doesn't do is it gives you another officer. And I'll talk about them more specifically in a moment. This is my officer for my assault platoon. So it's kind of the assault platoon is in this L shape in this photograph here. And that's my officer there. But this is my officer for the artillery platoon. Very different. Only in 1 model, and a mundane rather than conflict models. And I think that's something that is, depending on faction, rather easy to achieve. Because if you brought an artillery platoon with one artillery piece, which is the minimum, you would get an officer and artillery piece. If you brought a heavy weapons platoon, particularly for factions that get heavy machine guns, they can be useful, and just have 2 of those and an officer. The engineers platoon, possibly, depending on which type of engineers. There has been some discussion about whether you can take conflict engineers, such as the ghosts can take the engineers upgrade. Some other specialist units can as well. And can they be taken in any engineers platoon? I assume anything with the engineers rule can, but like I said, there's been a bit of disagreement about exactly what that means. But with an engineers platoon, even if you're taking mundane engineers or conflict units, you get an officer. And then similarly in, I'm missing one, there is one other platoon that you get a regular officer rather than a vehicle officer. Obviously the armor platoon here and the walker platoon, which you can take some infantry units in the walker platoon, but the commander is a command vehicle. It's the walker, so you don't get an infantry officer. Right, well, let's get started then. I'll talk through my list. I'm still seeing nothing on my stream. I am live. I am sending stuff out. I am getting stuff back from sending stuff out, but I'm not getting any information on the kind of on the stream in terms of it actually being live. If anyone is in chat, please say hello so that I can confirm that I am live. This happened, I believe this happened during the stream. I'm not sure if it was last week or the week before, where I lost all this information. But we did manage to continue on, the stream carried on, and today I shall carry on with the stream. So, my army is starting with, as I mentioned, an assault platoon. And this is my officer here. So 3 models in assault frame. Now I love the assault frames. I've got a squad of them as well. But having the officer in assault frame is something that is kind of expensive, and I'm not 100% sure if it's something I'm going to keep doing, because I think there might be better ways to spend those points. A unit of 5 regular assault frames and the unit of 3 assault frames with the officer are very similar in terms of the total points. But they have many more attacks, but they don't have the officer's bonus. But if I throw in an officer nearby, something like the regular one here, they would get some of the officer's bonuses and also be a bigger squad. So that's something I'm going to consider in the future. But for the moment, we've got 3 assault frame, officer and assault frame, 3 models, and they also have the Yumi Yorai launcher, which I'm certainly mispronouncing. Basically, disposable missile launchers, just like any unit in Konflikt 47 can take. Up here, I have my Ashigaru, so that's a squad of 12 of the Shiboru rifle squad, so damage value 5+ for them. Solid infantry choice. I've really enjoyed bringing them. I have toyed with bringing them as the battle frames and then having the upgrade to a Shiboru rifle. That's good, and that makes them a little bit more survivable. But strangely, I think the damage value 5 version, stick them in cover and they become survivable enough, but they're cheaper and have 2 more shots because you can have 12 models instead of maximum of 10. Dexian's Gaming Corner. Hi, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Board action in Konflikt 47 for the last 20 minutes of work. Yes, please. Well, I'm glad that you are not ignoring your duties and are enjoying the stream. Lovely. Welcome in. Up here is my ghosts, and I painted the ghosts on live stream a little while back. It has actually been some time, but I finally I did get them painted, and I finally got them onto the table. When I first used the Ghosts, when Conflict 2nd Edition first came out, I tried the Ghosts in a couple of games, and I did not do well with them. But after I stopped using them and just put them on the painting shelf, I kind of had a thought about how they're supposed to be used. Because I was trying to... Andre, good evening. How you doing? Hope you're having a good time. I was trying to jump these in a super aggressive way. So you make a move, you shoot with the Shibori rifle, and then you use their Ghost Dance ability, the Bon Odorai, and then jump them right up to an enemy unit, wait for the next turn, and then either shoot at point blank or charge or something there. But that leaves them in an incredibly vulnerable position. And so what I want to try, or what I tried during this event, what I've been wanting to try, is a slightly more harassing role for the Ghosts. So at some point early in the game, you use the Bon Odorai to move them into a position where they can fight from, but not actually be seen directly. So behind a piece of cover, behind a building, or whatever it might be. And then when they get their activation each turn, you advance them forwards, which they can move through cover freely because they have Fieldcraft. Even without the Bon Odorai, they can pass through cover really easily. And they're fast, so they're moving 8 inches when they do that. So you can move them 8 inches, and then with the Shibori rifles, you've got another 24 inches range. Fire those off. And then you use the Bon Odorai again to move them back behind cover. So it's actually somewhat similar to the Firefly's ability to jump forward, fire, and then withdraw again. And that is how I used them in this event, and we'll talk about how that worked, how that didn't work, what the pitfalls are. I'm certainly not an expert when it comes to the Ghosts, but I gave it a try. So over here is my assault frames. So there's 6 of them. And the reason why there are 6 of them is because this is a Sodar armoured carrier with a transport capacity of 6. And so these guys will be riding around in this for basically the whole game. Hey Clove, how you doing? What's up? Hope you're having a good day. I also have some smaller units involved in my assault platoon. So I have the Lunge Mine, which is absolutely vital for a Japanese army. There is sort of nothing better in the Japanese list to take out a Walker. Or really any heavy armoured vehicle. The Shibori cannons just aren't reliable enough. The biggest anti-tank gun we can get is a medium, so that's +5. And whilst, yes, assault frames and other units, particularly the Ghosts, can get into close combat with combat blades and peel open a tank, getting them there is very risky. Whereas one 26-point unit can go unnoticed sometimes. Clove says, what did I miss? Not much, actually. I've really just started. I'm talking through my list so that when I talk about the games, we've got some understanding of what I brought. So the Lunge Mine, absolutely fantastic unit for the Japanese. To an extent, it is unreliable, but it is very powerful. And if it makes contact, it will usually kill any vehicle that it comes across. Particularly against a Walker, it doesn't really start a round of combat. So the Americans, so the Walker, which would usually fight first in combat, doesn't get to fight first because it's not happening in combat. The Lunge Mine just charges, immediately blows up. The Lunge Mine is dead, but it always gets its attack off against the vehicle. And it automatically hits with a penetration of 8, and that can be very good. If you roll poorly, you can still fail to kill a vehicle, but it is pretty powerful. And I think that's one of the defining factors of the Japanese list, is that any of our anti-tank is either very weak or just not that reliable. The biggest anti-tank gun we get is medium. The assault frames and other close combat units can maybe get there and peel open a tank. The Lunge Mine can maybe get there and definitely blow up a tank, but it's just You have to play around being. You have to play with the understanding that you might not take out the enemy vehicles, and how do you play the mission regardless. I also have here the last Konflikt47 unit. This is my Shiboru sniper. I have named my Shiboru sniper Ichi, which is a bit of a pun. Ichi is a Japanese name, but it's also the word for the number 1, because as a sniper he always rolls 1s. We'll see if he was any more successful this time. There's a light mortar down here. Honestly, just for the points, I don't necessarily think that mortars are amazingly useful in Konflikt47. I think if any type of mortar is going to be brought, it's going to be the light mortar, just because it's cheap and you can throw them around all over the place, because they have fire and move, or rather they don't have fixed, where the medium and heavy mortars do have fixed. And also, you can throw one in a rifle platoon, sorry, in an assault platoon, rather than having to take an extra platoon for it. Clove says, I thought he hot Itchy. It is rather warm still. It's not as warm as it has been, but it is warm today. The final entry here, and I think I'm missing a model in this photograph, because I think it should be 7 models, not 6. But this is a mundane, regular infantry squad with the engineers rule, so that they can take a flamethrower. So these guys are a mundane squad with a flamethrower. I've actually got a couple of submachine guns in there as well, just in case. I'm going to let you know now, those submachine guns never got used, but the flamethrower is the point of this squad. Throw them up close, get the flamethrower in, and maybe do some damage that way. And to achieve that, we have a truck, just a boring, regular truck. The armoured carrier is obviously a bit more survivable, but it's slower because it's a tracked vehicle. The truck is a little bit faster, way cheaper, but it pays for that by being a bit more vulnerable. So the assault frames are going to go in the Sodar, the armoured carrier, and in the truck we're going to have my assault frame officer and the engineers and the lunge mine. And so that means that the officer can help out these units here. The lunge mine especially really can make some value out of maybe a point of guts to get that order die back in the bag. Leadership test for the flamethrowers when they get pins. Andre says, are you on your new chair? I am. I do not like it. It's very creaky, and yeah. My old chair started creaking, and that's how I knew it was on the way out. This new chair is creaking from day one, so we'll see. Hopefully it's just that it's a creaky chair rather than being a bad chair, but it might be a bad chair. Up here is my, did I mention everything? Yes. So up here at the top is my artillery platoon. So here I have an officer, inexperienced, mundane, with a pistol, haven't even given him a rifle, absolute bare bones, cheapest officer you can get, except he has one upgrade, and that is a hero point. Specifically, rather than taking guts, because I've taken a lot of guts, my main officer has a point of guts because he's going to be up close and will need it, but this one has a point of luck. And there's so many different uses for luck. One of the ones that is most obvious will be making sure that I don't fail the leadership test on these guys, because there's a 1 in 18 chance of them failing leadership test over here. So I've got a point of luck that can save them if they do fail that, or I've got a point of luck that can roll to hit roll with a vehicle or something else, possibly even the lunge mine. If the lunge mine rolls a 1 and I use a point of luck on him, that is absolutely valuable to take out a 200 or 300 point vehicle, right? Hope we can all agree on that. That's definitely a valuable use of a point of luck. And so having officers like this that are just cheap to bring a point of luck, I would like to be able to take more points of luck, but then if we can, so can everyone else. So being able to just take a couple is an interesting way of doing things. But the artillery platoon itself consists of 2 Type 4 double autocannons. So use the anti-air mounts, but we can obviously fire them on ground targets. And that means each of them has 4 shots with a pen value of 2 with an armor piercing or a 1-inch blast marker. And that, I think, is really handy in Konflikt 47. As we'll go through, I didn't necessarily find places to put 2 of them. So I think just bringing 1 in future might be good. But there is an upgrade for the autocannon, for all Japanese light artillery. And that's basically giving artillery fieldcraft. So it's the veteran jungle fighters rule, and it gives a light artillery unit fieldcraft. So being able to move, and what that does, fieldcraft means that you treat rough ground as open ground. And that means the artillery can now move into cover, not just behind cover, but into cover, giving them a really good ability to get onto the field, get good lines of sight. I didn't do that today in the games that I'm showing you, but in future I might, because that is a super valuable thing. Dexon says, as a Commonwealth player, yeah, double autocannon is strong. Yeah. I think having 2 of them, I think this is a universal thing for me at the moment, is that if I find something in Konflikt that's powerful, especially for the Japanese, I want to have 1 of them. But I don't want to have 2 or 3 of them. Because having 2 or 3 of them soaks up so many points or so many slots that other things don't get their place. So I think having 1 autocannon, 1 of the double autocannons would be great. Rudy, hi, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Who says autocannons are OP. 30 points for a single barrel autocannon. 35 points for a single barrel autocannon is very, very nice. But they are only pen 2 with armor piercing shot. So they're not that powerful. They're really handy and cheap. So they are good. I like them. John Shepard, hi, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Haven't played bolt action since something. I assume we'll have the rest of that message in a moment. Yeah, so I've got 2 twin-barreled autocannons. It's the Type 4 mount. The Type 4, and they are going to be my fire support. We've mentioned the transport vehicles, so it's just the 2 vehicles here, the main fighting vehicles. This is an armoured platoon, as you would expect, but if you notice, there's no blue over here. This is all brown and green and yellow and white. So there's no energy cannon on either of these vehicles. These are mundane, regular bolt-action tanks. So this is first one here is a Chi-Ha, and the Chi-Ha doesn't have a Shiboro cannon. It just has the Shinhoto turret, or rather, it has the Shinhoto, which gives it a medium anti-tank gun. It is again one of the biggest anti-tank guns we get as the Japanese, but the medium still useful. Pen 5 can threaten basically any vehicle in the game, and is kind of the best we have for a reliable anti-tank weapon in the Japanese. So I brought one of those on a Chi-Ha. It is a light vehicle, light tank, so it's armor 8. It's not particularly survivable, but compared to a lot of the other options, I think it's rather good. Over here is I was about to say Chinu. That's not Chinu. Oh, good grief. I've forgotten its name. That's embarrassing. I apologise for this. Hargo. There we go. Got it. So this is a Hargo tankette. Officially a light tank, but as far as bolt action is concerned, it is a light tank. So it's an armor 7 vehicle. It does have an anti-tank gun and a machine gun, so it's got its abilities to fire out. But that anti-tank gun is not just a light anti-tank gun. It is a low velocity light anti-tank gun. And what that means is that it has a pen value of 3, which is, for taking out a tank, absolutely useless. For taking out a Stahltruppen or an Ursus, actually rather useful. And it also has a HE, so it's got a 1-inch HE shot as well. Rudy says, love my M17, 1 heavy autocannon and 2 heavy machine guns. That's a lot of firepower, yeah. But again, the best you get is Pen 3 with the heavy autocannon. So you're not offending most vehicles with that. It is fantastic against heavy infantry, and that's entirely what it's for. And that's actually why I'm bringing the Hargo here, because it's for offending heavy infantry, not vehicles. John Shepherd says, first edition was the last time you played Bolt Action. Have brought the third edition rules and have Winter German Army painted up. The game has changed quite a bit, but also you will find everything very familiar. It's things like some of the changes are things like machine guns have gone from 3 and 4 shots to 4 shots for a light machine gun and 6 shots for a medium and a heavy. Things like the cover system, so we now have 3 rolls for a shooting attack: roll to hit, roll for casualties, and then roll a cover save. There's a lot of little things. Something that always annoys me: Tough Fighters works differently between 2nd and 3rd edition Bolt Action, and also works completely differently compared to Konflikt47. I'm half planning a video to just go through all the differences between the rule sets, because it does annoy me so much. Anyway, that is all of my list. So what I have is a very fast-moving selection of vehicles with assault frames in the Soda. I've got a lunge mine, flamethrower engineers, and assault frames officer in the truck. So that is a very fast-moving, very powerful, very nasty set of units getting thrown across the board. But then I also have 2 twin barrel autocannons, light mortar, sniper, and the Shiboro sniper and the Shiboro rifle squad that are all putting out consistent, kind of middle of the road firepower that I can just line them up in at the back of the field and throw shots out. Particularly the Shiboro rifle squad with their Pen 1, and if they hit a vehicle, Pen 2. Absolutely love them. They can put out a lot of damage. So I've got a bit of a firing line, and I've got a bit of a fast moving element as well. So I'm kind of going along the hammer and anvil tactic for anyone who's played that way. But then also the ghosts can be both. They can join the fast moving element because they can dance about the board, but then they can also back up and join the fire support units here. Mortar, sniper, and the autocannons. So that I can jump the ghosts back to join the autocannons, put out even more firepower in those if the situation calls for it. John Shepherd, do play a lot of Chain of Command, so can use my Warlord stuff for both. I haven't played. I know there's a few guys in my local group that also play Chain of Command. It's not as popular as Bolt Action here, but I do want to give it a go because the way that the rule set works is quite interesting. I really love the order dice for Bolt Action though. Alright, so table 1, and I have to apologise for the lighting. I was in the dark corner for this. So we have an oddly open board. There's a lot of long lines of sight, and even in some places you can see from one board edge to the opposite board edge in a straight line. When I set up a table, I try and make sure that that's not possible. So there's always, no matter what line you draw from anywhere on one table edge to anywhere on the other table edge, try and have always at least one bit of terrain in the way. However, just because I like to play it that way doesn't mean I always have to play it that way. And being on a board that is different and plays in a different way, it's interesting. It tests your tactical ability, and so it's a useful thing. Even if it's not how I would do it, playing this way is beneficial. So the mission is just a straight punch up. So we've got first wave deployment coming onto the board, and you can see the opponent has Axis up here. We've got some Stahltroopers here and behind the building here. We've got some zombies right up in the middle. Vogelspinner, and I think this is a Panther. It's heavy tank with a rail cannon, the Schwerkanone. So very powerful thing. And I immediately realized, even as we were deploying, with that vehicle going on the right flank, I've really got nothing that can take it out. The lunge mine would have a go if it gets there. The assault frames might be able to peel it open, but it's, like I've said, it's very unreliable. So what I'm actually doing now is that slow heavy tank deployed all the way on that side, I might just throw everything up the left flank. Now I did get a little bit lucky in this case because my opponent got a few early order dice and actually deployed the tank early. Most players will deploy their vehicles or their most powerful units last, but in this case I think for intimidation factor my opponent put that there with the good sight lines and just like, yeah, come on fight me. And I was like, no, I'm just going to go up this way. And that actually played in my favour, as we shall see. So I've got one autocannon here that's got some decent lines of sight to the building and across to this building, and even line of sight over here. I've got my Shiboru rifle squad, which tried to get into this building but never quite made it. And I've got my vehicles and my truck here coming up the left. And if you notice my Sodar here with the assault frame squad on board, they're going straight for the zombies. They're going to go in, smash up the zombies, and then they're going to try and overrun the zombies into the Vogelspinner, because probably my best chance for clearing the Vogelspinner would be the assault frames. And with the heavy tank over that side of the board, I can probably leave them alone. So this is what I was talking about with the ghosts. What I've done is I've moved them onto the board. Doesn't really matter where, and I immediately use spawn order A to move them behind this piece of cover. So this is on the left-hand flank. In fact, you can see them just here. And the plan here is using their fieldcraft and their Shiboru rifles. I just move them here. I can actually move them in front of the terrain or on top of the terrain, and I've got, and I've got a great field of fire over all of the infantry here, infantry in the building, and even the zombies as well. And these guys have Shiboru rifles, so remember with a rift die there, every hit becomes 2 hits against infantry, or gets pen 2 versus a vehicle. And they've got 2 rift dice. 2 rift dice, one for the Bonodorai, one for the Shiboru rifle. And so I'm going to churn as much as I can to give them the rift die. My Shiboru rifle squad really do also want a rift die. My sniper, the sniper does best with the rift die, but I think it's more valuable on the ghosts. So the ghosts are getting the rift die first, then the Shiboru rifle squad, and the sniper last. John Shepard says, I do like the look of the Japanese. Really gets my attention as I have a few samurai armies in various scales. That's cool, yeah. I love the styling of the Japanese. The Sasori, the original Sasori was my favourite first edition model, and the Type 7 Sasori, as it's now called, the new one, is my favourite of the second edition models. Andre says, does the organizer set the objectives beforehand for each board, or do the players do that before starting? So the way that we run things, different events run different ways, but the way that we run things is we set the tables, we set who's playing on each table and who they're playing against, and then we tell them, you're playing this mission. So everyone will play the same mission for game 1, and when we go into game 2, we'll do the same thing, set people into tables, and we say this is the mission. And it'll be a different mission for the 3 games of the day, but everyone will play the same mission for game 1, same mission for game 2, same mission for game 3. Generally speaking, we only play mirror missions rather than attack and defend missions, and that's just because of the structure of our general events. Right, so my opponent, we've kind of covered their deployment a bit. They've got a Schwertruppen officer, a Schwertruppen bazooka, it's Panzerschreck rather. This I'm slightly worried about because I've got all my vehicles right here, and this is the biggest anti-tank weapon that they've got. However, over here, the Strolltruppen also have a light anti-tank gun, which is pretty dangerous as well. Strolltruppen officer and then Schwertruppen squad are going to move into the building. So as I'm coming up here, my first targets are the anti-tank weapons. The Schwertruppen are the easier target because there's 2 of them, and their damage value 6. Whereas the Stormtrooper damage value 7, and obviously 3 models in the squad, you can see them there, so they're a bit more survivable. So if I can take out the Shred Trooper, that's only 1 shot that my opponent could put out each turn, and that means that my vehicles, they're still vulnerable, but I can only lose 1 a turn if I'm only getting shot once a turn. And so one of the first things I do is I move up my ghosts here. I use a Rift Die to use the Shibori rifles and blat the Shred Trooper Panzerschreck team, and then I use the other Rift Die 1 level going from surging to active to jump them immediately just back to where they came from, because when they're behind the cover, they're out of line of sight, they can't be targeted at all. If they're here in cover, they get heavy cover, that's nice, but if they're behind cover, they just can't be shot at, and that's them perfectly safe. And this is what I spoke about at the beginning, and I think this is one of the things that the ghosts will be very good at. And again, having 3-4 squads doing this doesn't really add much value. Just having 1 squad is very powerful. So you see here, my truck charges up forwards, and my officer jumps out. My flamethrower engineers also jump out. And I think I used the flamethrower and missed, and then I brought the officer up and used the point of guts on the flamethrower. So using a point of guts on another squad means you can take their order die and put it back in the bag, and so whatever unit that is can actually activate twice. I often do this for my assault frames. Put the assault frames and an officer in a truck together. That's really nice. But in this case, I'm using the engineers, because that flamethrower against the Shred Trooper in the building, that's a perfect target for them. They fired once, didn't do much. They fired a second time and did much better. Ran out of fuel, but didn't actually completely wipe out that squad, which is a shame. We can see here, 1 model left. I'll let them have that. But you notice up here, all of the enemy units here have started to disappear. So my assault frame officers had jumped out, and then in the beginning of the next turn had charged up and wiped out the Shred Trooper and officer. Actually, sorry, I didn't mention that before. Charged the Shred Trooper and officer. We shot up the officer in Stormtrooper armor. No, we didn't. We shot up the Stormtrooper with the anti-tank gun. Get things right around. My apologies. So it's just the Stormtrooper officer remaining, and then I think there might have been 2 Shred Trooper here, 1 here and 1 just tucked behind the wall, so you can't see him. But that is really good news for me, because this mission is just based on kill points. So for every unit that you take out, you get a point, and whoever's got the most points wins the mission. So if I can take out all of the little units, the anti-tank teams, the officers, things like that, the cheap units, if I can churn through all of them, if I can eat through all of them, that gives me a lot of points very quickly, and it puts my opponent on the back foot, which means they're less likely to be able to earn points back against me as well. What you might notice is that there is another unit that was on the truck that you don't see in this picture, and that's because my lunge mine is still on the truck, because there's no vehicles here. There's no point in him getting out. So the truck with the lunge mine is going to sail off in this direction and, I don't know, try and find a vehicle somewhere. Clove says, killing Stormtrooper and officer is worthless because fanatics and PA plus Axis veteran rule. I disagree because of the mission. Killing the Stormtrooper and officer is a point, and getting more points wins the mission. If the mission was different, then you might be right. I might just leave the Stormtrooper by himself, because he's only got the 3-shot assault rifle. He didn't have Panzerfausts, I don't think. He didn't have any other upgrades like that. And yeah, he's in that heavy armor, which makes him harder to kill, but he's not particularly dangerous. And particularly now as he's got no units to order about, he's not even using his officer's bonus. So, I brought up my assault frames. They jump out. They empty their submachine guns into the zombies. I think I killed 2 or 3 of them. Not many. It's a big squad. I also shot some other units at the zombies as well as I was going just before I moved them in, because I wanted to put the absolute maximum in to reduce the numbers to make it easier for my assault frames to win the combat. My assault frames then were the last order die of this turn, because I'm going to charge the zombies, wipe out the zombies, and then the first thing I want to do next turn is get moving again. I don't know if I can reach the Vogelspinner, but if I can, that's great. If I can reach the, I think this is the light mortar team, that's also great. As long as I can go for something, then that's all I need to do. That was a nice plan, and I was thinking far ahead, and perhaps I was thinking too far ahead. Because I charged the zombies. The Totem Core are rolling 2 dice each because of tough fighters, and have and I have a damage value of 6. So they're rolling like 15 or 20 dice, loads and loads of dice, and any 6s that they're getting is taking out one of my guys. And my guys in return, they're attacking 3 times each, Deadly 2 and Tough Fighters. But I also have the +1 from the Energy Blades. So their damage value 6 becomes 5. So I only need 5s and 6s to kill. They need 6s. I'm actually rolling more dice. So I am in just the best position. I should be completely wiping them out. Yeah, so I lost this combat. The zombies wiped out my squad. They just rolled loads of 6s. We had a second round of combat because I'm fanatics and I don't run away. And then they rolled a bunch more 6s. Just a handful of dice, and there's only 6 models in my squad here. And if you roll 15 dice, getting 3 6s out of 15 dice is not unreasonable. Getting 3 6s out of 20 dice is not unreasonable. So actually, on average, I probably was going to lose this combat. But I was hoping that my rolling would go in really well, because I've got 18 attacks back that are killing on 5s. So it's not necessarily that my opponent rolled well, it's that I rolled poorly. But the dice decided this combat, and I actually lost. So the assault frames wiped out completely, right in the middle of the board, leaving the zombies free to do whatever the zombies do. And whilst I have done a lot of damage on this side, losing the assault frames, which is one of my main units, is quite punishing. Clove says, wait, this isn't count as united 1 point or the worth of points of the unit. Style Trooper and Squad is 90 points for 3 models. So, no. It's the order dice. So every time you wipe out a squad, you take their order die and you put it on the side of the table, and that's your victory point. And at the end of the game, whoever's got the most order dice of wiped out units wins. And so if you bring a lot of small units like light mortars and officers and cheap units like that, sniper perhaps, truck even, and the enemy's like, I'm going to take those cheap units out, they can score loads of points really quickly. And if you only have 4 absolutely massive squads that are really tough and hard to kill, well, you might not kill much over the course of a game, but if you don't lose anything, the opponent doesn't score any points. So yeah, it is wiped out squad is 1 point, and it doesn't matter how many points, how many requisition points it costs to buy that unit for your list. So the officer, the Shred Trooping Officer, 1 point, the Style Trooping Squad, 2 points, the Panzerfaust team, 3 points. The Shred Trooping Squad, I did manage to wipe them out, that's 4 points, and so on and so forth. But in return, I've lost my assault frames, so that's 1 point for my opponent. Given that combat was going so badly for me, I didn't necessarily think this was a good idea. My assault frames here do have the Yuma Uri launcher, so I can just walk up and shoot a Panzerfaust right into this guy's face at point blank range. It might kill him. It might kill him. But if I charge him, I think it's more likely to get off that kill. So with shooting, I only get one die to hit, and it would be a 3+ and then a 2+. So it's likely, but it's only one chance. And if I roll a 1 on any of them, that's it. If I charge, I need a 6 because they're in the Stormtrooper armor. I have +1, so that's a 6+ to kill them. So I need to roll a 6, but I have 9 dice to try it. I should be able to get a 6 out of 9 dice. And what's my opponent going to do? They've got tough fighters. They've got 2 attacks. They're not going to take out. They might take out 1 if they roll a lucky 6. So whilst I did win this combat, it also didn't go that well because my opponent rolled a double 6 on their 2 attacks, killing 2 of my guys. But I did manage to get a 6 out of my 9 attacks, and so I did take out the Stormtrooper officer. But that was costly. That was costly. But because my officer survived, 1 model remaining, that means I don't lose the point, but killing the enemy officer means I do win the point. So the victory point, that was worth doing. So here's a close-up of the assault frames versus the totem core. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's actually 20 attacks coming in versus 18 attacks going out. 20 attacks at 6s and 18 at 5s. I should have won that combat, but I didn't. And yet, you can see here, my assault frames are gone, and the totem core actually moved up. As soon as the totem core moved up, I had line of fire with everything. Both of my autocannons, my Shibori rifles, my Shibori sniper, and my ghosts even, because right now my ghosts are on this side of the board. They've really got nothing else to shoot at. So just everything poured into the totem core for that turn, and I wiped them out with shooting rather than close combat. You can see my officer here moving up, now a single model. I need to be a bit more careful with him now, because if I just blazingly charge forwards like I would want to, he'll go down and lose that point, basically handing a point to my opponent. My engineers are a little bit more useful, so if I can get them into the building and use them defensively, I can probably take out the light mortar here. Might be able to put some fire into the Stormtrooper. They would need to be closer for the flamethrower, obviously, but there's options there. But what I really want to do is move the truck with the lunge mine up so that I can take out the Vogelspinner. Well, the Vogelspinner didn't like the sound of that and shot the truck, blowing up the truck and the lunge mine, which means the truck is 1 point, 1 victory point. The lunge mine is 1 point, so that's 2 victory points for my opponent just for that. Really bad news. But you'll also notice that the Vogelspinner's gone. That's because my autocannons got a lucky hit, got through the armor and set it on fire, and it failed its leadership test. Those autocannons really are nice. They are working for me quite well. And I brought over the ghosts. So they jumped out of the cover, shot the ghost, shot the totem core. Basically, there was no totem core left, and so they jumped over here. And then I used the other autocannon to finish off. One autocannon fired at the Vogelspinner, 1 autocannon fired at the totem core. So they're safe. Everything over here is fine. I've got a transport vehicle with nothing in. The other one's dead. But also, my opponent doesn't have anything in this whole bubble. Light mortar, I took him out. So my opponent's got these 3 Stormtroopers and the heavy tank, and that's it. So by the end of the game, I've torn through all of his small units and his Stormtrooper, except for this one. And in return, I've lost only a few. And so that is 1 win for me. First game of the day, and I've come out on top, which is pretty nice. There's my artillery officer, light mortar, and autocannon here, just to show where they were. So the autocannon had line of sight through here to get the Vogelspinner. Does have line of sight on this now, but there's no way an autocannon's going to get through that armor. Like I said, the The Shibori Rifle Squad didn't manage to get... I wanted to get them in the building because that would have been a great line of fire for them, but they just I needed them to shoot the zombies the entire game, especially after the assault frames lost that combat. So they just sat there and shot the zombies, which is pretty useful. And it did score me that point for the zombies as well. So overall, a victory, tough fought, but going up this side, kind of almost taking the bait from my opponent and really pushing up, being really aggressive, actually worked in my favor. So, game the second, and I actually remembered to take pictures of my opponent's army, mainly because they brought a slice of cake to fight me. As you can see, it's mostly style trooping with a Stu 3, and quite a few upgrades. We've got Panzerfausts, we've got an anti-tank gun in there somewhere, but most of the infantry here is style trooping, and then the slice of cake. My opponent brought a slice of cake to fight me. It's absolutely beautiful. Love this thing. So this is a Panzer 8 Mouse, armor 11. Armored all round, so it's armor 11 on the sides and armor 10 on the rear. You only get +1 on the rear, so it is very hard to kill, especially for me. And then it has a gun so it's a gun so big that Bolt Action had to make new rules just for it. So the biggest anti-tank gun in Bolt Action is +7. This is still a +7, so they didn't make it +8, which they very much could have done. But by making it +7, they actually gave it a rule that means over half range, you would usually lose a point of penetration. This thing doesn't. So it's pen 7, no matter how far away you are. It is slow. It runs out of fuel. It is 400 points. So basically a third of our 1500 point list for today. It is tough and it is powerful, but it is one unit. And if I can play well, I can just avoid it. And that is definitely my plan going in. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and chuck my lunge mine over there, because the lunge mine has a chance. Not a good chance. But I'm going to try. If the lunge mine can take it out, that's great. That changes how I'm going to play. But for the most part, I'm just going to avoid it. So here is the board for the second game. And you'll notice in the middle there, it doesn't look, just the perspective of the picture makes that look like it's not in the middle, but I promise you it is. We measured it out. That's dead center of the board, and that is a movable objective. So you get a unit onto the objective, you pick it up, and then you move it back. We have some restrictions on how it moves. Essentially, the objective moves as if it's an infantry model, so it moves 6 inches per turn. Can only move 6 inches, cannot join a transport vehicle. If a unit picks it up that has fly, it can't fly. The unit can still fly around, but the objective can only move 6 inches. So it makes it fair based on the diff. Because if you could just drop a transport vehicle, drive up, grab it, drive back, you can win in turn 2 or 3. Same with a Firefly squad. Fly up a Firefly squad, grab it, fly back in the same turn. Turn 2, turn 3, you'd be scoring the objective. Probably turn 3. But in this case, it's there in the middle. My opponent has a lot of these style troopers put up in open ground, but this is before deployment. And as soon as they started deploying for the first turn, I noticed something that was going to play into my favor. So if you notice here, these two squads of style troopers are in the open ground, but they don't have a line of sight to the objective here. What they are is they're here behind this piece of terrain. The style trooping officer and then the other style trooping squad, and this is the dangerous one because this has loads and loads of light machine guns, and against my army, loads and loads of light machine guns are really, really powerful. That is 30 shots. And yes, they're killing my my assault frames on 6s. They're killing my other squads on 5s. 30 shots will take a few out no matter what. And I suffer from pins, unlike the Style Trooper. But they put my opponent put them in the terrain, and if you notice, they didn't even move the full 6 inches. This is 12 inches movement here. These have only moved a little bit. They basically, my opponent put them into this piece of terrain thinking this is where they want to fire from. Similarly with the mouse has come up, just clipping this piece of terrain, and the stew has moved up again through the terrain. And this is where I suddenly realized what I have to do in this mission. Because my opponent is not making good use of the open channels. I actually told him after the game, what I would have done is I would have run up Style Troop in here, I would have moved up the mouse here, I would be way further forwards. My stew would have been 18 inches, so here-ish. The mouse can only move 12 inches, so it's as far forward as it can go, but I'm going to move everything as far forwards, because if you can get into this piece of terrain in turn 2, and if you can get into this piece of terrain in turn 2, let's show the whole board again. If I can get in here and fire, I've got line of sight over the objective. If I can get to here, I'm in close support over the objective. But my opponent didn't do that. My opponent played much more slowly. Took the terrain, moved up bit by bit. And so what I have to do now is I need to play the objective. Forget trying to kill the enemy. Forget trying to take out those Style Troopers, because that is just a difficult thing. My army is a fast, lightweight assault unit. I need to get into close combat, avoiding gunfire, and fight in close combat. My opponent here is a shooting army. They have loads of light machine guns, and they have anti-tank guns, and the mouse as well. So if I try and charge forwards and get in close combat, I will lose everything. I might take some stuff out on the way, but I don't think I'm going to punch above my weight doing that. And so what I need to do is I need to play the mission. Get to the objective as fast as possible. Take the objective back to my board edge and get it off the board if I can. That's my plan. That is my only goal, because it's really my only chance for winning. And this is turn 1, and you can see I've done exactly that. I have charged up. That actually should be a run order there. With a 4-foot board, 24 inches is half the length of the table, and so a truck driving through open ground is going to move 24 right onto the objective. The truck itself can't move the objective, but the infantry on board can. Clove says, wonder how they painted the donut tank. It looks like just a fairly simple stippling. And is adding 8 points for a light machine gun each for Style Troop and Spam worth it? For a fire support squad, it can definitely be useful. And in this game, we'll see that the light machine gun Style Troop in here basically decided my mission. Just that one squad decided what I did. If they had just assault rifles, I would have played a little bit differently. But I think still the most important thing was I need to play the objective. My army is fast, and whilst my opponent can get to the objective in turn 2 and 3, I can get to the objective in turn 1 or 2. And so I need to be faster. I need to get that objective away so that my opponent can't take it back. I did, however, after dropping off some infantry on the objective, send up my engineers. And my engineers shot their flamethrower at the Style Troop and squad in the terrain here, because we're ignoring terrain, we may as well. Missed, ran out of fuel. Immediately got gunned down, completely wiped out, so did the truck. But that truck was very specifically placed. So I'm going to go back to... Sorry for going back constantly to the first picture, because this is actually quite important. So my truck has driven up here to get to here. 24-inch movements around, kind of not in a straight line, so it's around this angle, so it hasn't actually reached the center point of the board. And then the second move, it's made an advance of another 12 inches. It's got to here. It could have got a bit further, but I actually wanted to block this this opening here. because that's going to provide cover for the units at the back that are trying to take the objective. And I actually had a friend of mine was watching the mission, and he looked over and said, I bet you're gonna say that you did that on purpose. I very much did do that on purpose. So my truck is definitely going to die here, because look at all this. Everything here can kill the truck. My truck is going to die here, but it's in the position to actually provide cover for the rest of my forces. This unit here I'm worried about, because this unit here is doing the one thing that I don't want them to do, which is moving quickly. And you'll notice here, all of this stuff is still within 6 inches of my opponent's board edge. They're not moving up. That's a mistake on my opponent's behalf. But this unit is, in fact, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That has to be 2 units. I actually don't know which unit's which, but there's 2 units of Style Trooping. These guys are dangerous. These guys are what I need to focus on. And here are my Ashigaru moving up to take the objective. Excellent, we have it. My vehicles, I'm just throwing my vehicles up here to block, just to give my opponent stuff to shoot at. Because the more my opponent has to shoot at, the less they're going to shoot at the squad holding the objective. And yes, holding the objective is very much painting a target on their backs. But at the moment, they're out of line of sight. So this piece of terrain is blocking line of sight here. The truck is blocking line of sight here. And this piece of terrain is blocking line of sight here. So these guys right now are safe. I just need to grab that objective and drag it as fast as I can off the board. And I'm just going to move up my assault frames here as well, with the transport, with the SODA transport. There you go. So that's that. Assault frames up. That's the assault frame. Sorry, that's the SODA up, blocking line of sight, and that's the assault frames again, helping out move the objective. And that is already the objective moved 6 inches towards my board edge. So technically, I am winning. This unit of Style Trooping is now definitely 1 unit because I took out the other unit. I don't think I got a picture of it. I should have done. But all the way on this side of the board, behind this tree here, out this way, are my ghosts. And so I moved my ghosts the same way as I did in the first game. Move them into the open ground, shoot with the Shibora rifle, and then ghost dance back behind cover. And they were very effective at taking out 1 of the units of Style Trooping, but there's just too many of them. They are too tough, and they just keep coming. So after my truck did very successfully, I played it up a bit and did exactly the same thing with my SODA. Parked it right there. My opponent now has very little to shoot at except for the SODA. And the Hargo there. I think the Hargo actually survived this mission. I don't know how. But as you can see, this is now turn 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So this is turn 4. I've dragged the objective significantly far away. So all of these Style Trooping back here that have this is the light machine gun squad. They were in this piece of cover providing fire support. My opponents realised that they are now completely useless because I've got nothing on that side of the board. All of my this is my furthest forward unit. So having the light machine gun squad out there is useless. So they're now desperately trying to get past the truck, past all of this, so that they can shoot at something. The only unit that my opponent has that's any threat to me is the Style Trooping squad that actually moved up. And these guys are a problem for me. But I do have my assault frames in the way, and my plan actually here is to just lucky roll, maybe, and charge the Style Trooping with the assault frames. That is why I brought assault frames. Given that I lost 2 models versus 3 Style Trooping, and this is a full squad of 6, it's not looking good, but at least I can slow them down or kind of take out a few models so that I can shoot with some other units and take them out completely. But really, it's all a mad panic to get the Ashigaru to move the objective off of the board. If you count these up, you'll actually notice there's less than 12 of them here, because my opponent did get some shots off in various directions at them. But I've got my artillery officer giving them a leadership bonus. And it is so easy to take out an officer. That's an inexperienced single model, the most vulnerable thing in the game. But this squad has the objective, and so this is what my opponent has to take out. And with an officer, they passing their leadership tests, clearing the pins, and getting moving. Here is kind of basically at the end of the game now. My opponent is starting to move up. He should have been in this position in turn 2, not turn 5. But it's a little bit too little too late kind of situation. And in fact, just over here you can see this anti-tank gun style trooper. That's my opponent's officer style trooper, who is just still within 6 inches of the board edge. Has nothing to shoot at. Can't even shoot at my ghosts. Okay. And this finally in probably turn 6, I believe, the last turn of the game, my Ashigaru got off of the board edge with the objective, winning the mission. And that is exactly what I wanted at the beginning of the game. Rush forwards, grab the objective, and just drag it back as best I could. And that's my position of my enemies in the end of turn 6. The Stew's moved up. The Stew is really dangerous in this position. The assault frames are all the way down here. I was wrong about my Hargo. That did get taken out. In fact, so much got taken out that this is the kill points for this mission. Remember I said in the first mission that the order dice of wiped out units scores points. In this mission, there is only that movable objective that scores the victory. No matter how many order dice you lose, that doesn't matter. The grey ones are mine. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I lost 9 units in this game. And in return, I killed 1, which is that Style Trooper squad that I shot the ghosts at. But I won the mission because I played the mission. My opponent kind of set up for a shooting match, and I didn't play for a shooting match. I went for the objective, and I got it off the board. Pretty much back to one of the common sayings in any war game: play the objective, play the mission, because you win the mission by winning the mission, not by wiping out the enemy. All right, so we can move on to game 3. I just will take a moment to send a quick message because someone's been nagging at me. Talk amongst yourselves for 10 seconds. Right, that should be that. We can get back to game 3. So, I've been fairly successful today. I have 2 wins out of 2 games, which is nice. And now I'm playing one of the more competitive players in our group, who naturally also won both of his games. So, even though this was a casual event, and we weren't playing particularly competitively, and there are no prizes for winning, that's why we can offer a lower cost of entry for this type of event. We are still using a tournament style organization. So whoever wins games gets to play with other people who've won games. Whoever loses gets to play with people who also lost. And that makes things a little more kind of fair and a little bit more what's the term? It's a nicer way to play because you're playing it. If you've won a game and you go against someone who lost their first game, the chances are you're going to absolutely smash them. Not always. It's not just a straight linear who has the most skill, but there is a general trend where the better the player is, the more likely they are to win. And so by organising ourselves in this way, it does mean that the generally better players will end up fighting the other best players, and the players who aren't as good are going to fight people that are at their skill level as well. Just makes it nicer for everyone, even if it wasn't a proper tournament. Oliver, hi, how you doing? Love to see coverage of this event. Sorry I'm late to stream. Absolutely fine. Thank you for popping past. Hopefully you're having a good day. So, Game 3 against one of the most competitive players in our group at a casual event that is not competitive. And I didn't take pictures of their list, but I want to point out a couple of things. Number one, you can just see the feet of them. This is a pair of Heuschrecker jump mechs. And this is a squad of 4 Schreckwolfen. Behind the Schreckwolfen is an officer with a point in Rift Mastery. So as soon as the game began, the officer gave the werewolves an extra Rift Die and turned it to Surging. So this is actually something that I didn't talk about in my recent video on Rift Dice. I talked about tilling and churning, kind of getting rid of a Rift Die so that you can have Surging when one rolls up, or just having a lot of units using Rift Dice so you can cycle them through. But in this, but what I didn't mention was actually one of the core rules of Konflikt47, and that's Rift Mastery. The Brits and the Germans get Rift Mastery, and so does some of the characters as well. But what you can do is you can give another unit a Rift Die, and you can even make that a Surging Rift Die under certain circumstances, which my opponent set up. Now, what that does for the Schreckwolfen specifically, a Surging Rift Die means they have damage value of 8. Which means that anything with a pen of 1 can no longer hurt them. So all of my Ashigaru with their Shibori rifles can't hurt them. My assault frames in close combat, all those attacks can't hurt them. I am now limited to my Hargo and my Chiha. And technically, no, because that's a 1-inch blast on the light mortar. The ghosts have Shibori rifles, so that's pen 1. The officer has assault frames, so that's pen 1. The only thing I've got that can kill those Schreckwolfen is my 2 tanks, the anti-tank guns there. Now I'm glad I brought the Hargo, because having a low velocity pen 3 gun still going to be good against the Schreckwolfen, but the medium anti-tank gun's obviously going to be a bit better. But the thing is, they only fire 1 shot per turn, so at best, if I roll perfectly, I can kill 2 a turn, and there's 4 models in that squad. But as we shall see, the Heuschreckers are also going to have their way. So the Heuschreckers come down and just devastate most of what's here. The truck gets blown up. I'm surprised that the opponent dropped a Heuschrecker down and shot at a truck. But the truck also has a lunge mine and the assault frames and the engineers in it, so a valuable target to take out. The officer, 3 models, you roll d6 up to a maximum of the number in the squad. Took out 2 of the 3 of them, and then someone else, one of the 3 of them, but the officer then ran up here to fight the enemy officer. That's basically all he could do at this point. The engineer squad were cut down quite severely and got a point-blank shot with a flamethrower, which actually amazingly rolled the fire special result, which is beautiful, but the opponent passed the leadership test, and so it didn't kill them. And I think I have, yeah, so here's a picture of my officer who's run up here. I think I took out the enemy officer on the way, but in return, just massively outnumbered by heavily armoured infantry. No real chance for me here. Over the other side of the board, my opponent has Stahltruppen with light machine guns. So the interesting one here is that there's 1 anti-tank gun and 1 light machine gun in each of these squads. And because of how split fire works in Konflikt47, that means that anything with a pen value shoots at 1 target, and anything with no pen value shoots at a 2nd target. So the light machine gun is shooting at my infantry, and the anti-tank rifle is shooting at... Sorry, the anti-tank gun is shooting at whatever the heaviest unit it can see is. It's a really interesting way of doing things, very much a fire support squad, and this board is very open, so it plays into that. My assault frames are here, and they've decided that the only thing that they can do is charge the hoist wrecker because they can't take out the Schreckwolfen. But if you notice here, these rocks, we counted these as heavy cover, and my vehicles are down here firing through them. So not only do my vehicles have a 4+ to hit at best, the whatever roll to wound with the different guns might be, but then also a cover save of 4+, and then the hard to kill making it 2+. Essentially, my anti-tank guns on the two vehicles just couldn't get through, and that's really devastating for me because those are, again, the only weapons that I have that can actually even scratch the Schreckwolfen. Little cheeky squad here. I think this is a Nachtdelben squad. Doesn't really matter. They took this objective. The objectives don't really matter in this, as we shall see in a moment. I think I didn't take a photograph of it. Oh, that's a shame. My ghost started off here. As soon as my opponent brought down the hoist wreckers, I jumped my ghosts into this piece of terrain, actually into this piece of terrain, because they can do that, and blasted this hoist wrecker up at close range, and killed it. Which means I didn't walk away from this game with no kills. However, when I rolled for the jump to disappear again, so they started the turn, I ended one turn jumping them into the terrain, and then I started the next turn firing them at point blank and then jumping them away. When I jump them away, you take them off the board, you roll a leadership test. As long as you pass that leadership test, they can go wherever they want. I rolled a double 6. But it's okay, because I have that artillery officer with a point of luck, so I can re-roll one of those dice. And so long as I get less than a 4 or less, that would be 10, and that's... I rolled another 6. Triple 6 on a leadership test. Ouch. Ouch. So... basically, the truck and the assault frames not having anything to target really because they're against the toughest enemy units. My anti-tank guns on my vehicles not being able to get through the cover to even hurt the Schreckwolves. Basically, this game was done for me by my inability to move through the terrain. And yeah, my opponent has some great firing lines with the Stahltruppen. Again, this was a fairly open board. This is actually the same board as I played for the first mission, but just in the opposite direction. And I played the first mission by just charging up and being in the opponent's deployment zone as fast as possible. But from this direction, my opponent put up a lot of, just a wall of firepower that I just couldn't get through. And so, yeah, I wasn't tabled. Technically, I had models left on the board, but basically everything was gone. And my opponent easily had loads of the objectives. So that is a loss. However, in 3 games, as the Japanese, which is widely known as the weakest faction in the game, against 3 Axis players, winning twice is not that bad. I think I'm starting to learn some of the tricks for the Japanese. Things like moving up and getting into cover. Things like using mundane units. And especially using the ghosts. Being able to jump them into a safe spot. Advancing, firing, and then jumping back is what is the tactic that they are really, really good at. And so that is how I will use ghosts in the future. So just before we wrap up that and move on to other things, because we've got a decent bit of time left, we can probably do a bit of painting. Does anyone have any questions about the event, about the missions that I played? I'm just going to set up the models for painting. Clove says, when they lose first game, they need to pass morale check. If they fail, you know you will win. What? I do not understand the meaning of that. When they lose the first game. My opponent? Or the ghosts? Ah, it was a joke. Okay. I apologize for not understanding your joke. Alright, let's adjust some things. And switch over to... when you said that when the opponent loses the first game, there's a chance you crash them. Oh yeah, yeah. To do with the way that we run the events, it's essentially it is the same format as a tournament, but it's just more casual. But yeah, if you lose one game, there are people who definitely get psyched out. They lose the first game and that's it. They fail their morale check and go into the second one kind of on the back foot. I think it is. There is something to like losing a game and then immediately coming back from that. It's kind of psychologically a good place to be in if you can just turn that around. Start shaking up some paint. There we go. My opponent brought a slice of cake to fight me. Andre says, noob question. Does high ground influence range or is it purely horizontal? So high ground can affect things, but it's not range. So the range is the same. But we very rarely use, it's called elevated position and plunging fire. So plunging fire means if the angle is high enough, you shoot at the top armor of a vehicle, but then high ground or elevated position means you can shoot over friendly models, you can shoot over terrain, and so there's a chance that the opponent doesn't get cover saves. So there are advantages to high ground, but it doesn't give you extra range in this game, no. I mean, if anything, it gives you slightly less range, because instead of shooting at that, you're shooting like that, and trigonometry says that you lose a bit of range that way. You lose a bit of horizontal range because you're shooting... Yeah, anyway. I'm sure you know trigonometry. I think that... I was considering making this thumbnail for the video because this is very silly. Play the mission. Okay, let's move over to... painting. So we've got about 40 minutes left of the stream. What I should do is change the stream title, if I can remember how to do that. Painting Konflikt47 Fireflies. See, I will adjust that again after the stream to make sure that that's correct for future viewers. Right, the Fireflies. We are so close to being done with our Fireflies. We have, let me just grab some focus on this. I've done off of camera. I've done all of the tan on the knee pads and straps, so I've given them that like speckled highlight that I was talking about previously. We've done all the metalwork. We've even done the boots. We've done the shoulder pad. We've done the gas masks. So now all that is left to do is the uniform itself. So if I show this guy and this guy. So at the moment, all but one of them look like this, where it's just the green and the wash, and they're going to end up looking like this, with just that little bit of green highlight. Makes them look so much more interesting. Whoops. Everyone's trying to escape. There is no escape. So, who is it that's done? Nope. That one. So far, we have completed 1 firefly. Let's make that 2. Seems a little darker than normal. It is fairly visible, so that's the important thing. I've even got a nice fresh piece of baking paper on my wet palette. Which brush do I want to use? This is probably the best one. Need a nice sharp one for this. So I think I'm in for the next event playing as Japanese again. But now that I've got so much of my Americans painted, Fireflies will be done soon. I've got so many vehicles, and I've got some other American conflict units as well. I think I want to try. I think I want to start playing as the Americans for a few games. I have got the British automated platoon. I can only show the instructions at the moment because most of the models are downstairs. But I've got the British automated platoon. Obviously I've got the Axis Stahltruppen, which we'll be painting up as soon as I finish the Fireflies on live streams. So basically, I'm just waiting for the Soviets. The Soviets, anything that isn't the Ursus, really. Because I will obviously end up with some Ursus, but I'm not actually as much of a fan of the Ursus as some of the other stuff. So I'm quite happy to pick up the Ursus in a starter set rather than grabbing them individually. Now I want to see if I can find someone at the local group to split some Moraz Ghoul with, because if they come out in plastic, I'm definitely wanting probably 2 sprues of those, just to make 1 squad. If it's 5 or 6 on the sprue, you can make 10 or 12. That'd be spot on. But you're probably gonna get a few more than that in the box. I say that the automated infantry 10 to a box, so it's only 1 full squad. Basically, when the Moraz Ghoul come out, I will get some number of them. I already have the Ghosts platoon on pre-order, so I'll be getting that as well. Basically, I'm just buying a lot of conflict. I like this game, okay? this is looking good. Need to be careful not to highlight too heavily in one go. Which I think is what I've just done on that arm, but we shall come back to it. One saving grace of this particular green is that it doesn't actually cover all that well. And it loses a lot of vibrancy as it dries. So if I put down way too much, it will look lurid green, very bright, kind of really doesn't fit very well with the overall style that I'm going for. But 2 minutes later, once it's had a chance to dry, it becomes much more transparent. And so it's showing that, showing more of the very dark green that I've got underneath it. And so, as long as I do still need to be a little bit careful in how much paint I put in any one place, but it does mean that I can build up to the highlight that I want simply by painting the light green in multiple times in the same place, which is what I've done with this guy. So I can go a little bit further. Andre says, US Airborne are built. The M3 is nearly done, but I have to fix some mistakes before I put on the last bits. Hopefully I can get the Germans done this week. Nice. Hopefully you're having a good time with that. It's a lot of fun building some of that infantry. With it's the US Airborne. Which one's the Airborne? Light machine gun and bazooka, I think, or is it? It might be sniper and bazooka. So one thing I always like to think about when it comes to the Warlord game sprues is which of these support weapons you're getting on the sprue. It's why I want to get some of the new Gurkhas, because there's 4 special weapons per sprue, which is mad. And whilst I have a lot of them, I don't have all of them, such as flamethrower. I don't have a British flamethrower yet. And whilst I have a lot of them, having 2 of some things can be good. Like we mentioned in Konflikt47 that I don't think mortars are particularly useful, whereas in bolt action, having 2 light mortars is fantastic. I think in that starter set you're only getting, I think it's 12 infantry per side. Which is a great starting point. What you might decide is that that's enough, and you have a little display and you can play a little game. But what you also may decide is you actually rather enjoy building up these models. And you may just end up getting more. And so if you do get more, keep hold of the sprues, because any of the special weapons on there, if you don't make them the first time round, when you get another box of infantry and you get loads of bodies that you can make with any set of weapons, you can actually buy a box that's a different type of unit and get different special weapons. Rifle, submachine gun and bazooka. Is it only the bazooka that's the special weapon? So everyone, any infantry should get rifle, submachine gun, and light machine gun, except the Americans get the BAR instead of the light machine gun. So you should have rifle, submachine gun, and BAR. And then you usually get, not everyone, the Italians didn't get any special weapons on their sprues. French as well, I think. They just got light machine gun, rifle, and submachine gun. That's looking good. Helmet's fine, but I do want to just do a little bit of a highlight. 12 each and a half track. Yes, yes. Yeah, I saw you found my old M3 half track video. I think I did a video on the Stummel, which is essentially the same base vehicle as the 251. So the 251's a much easier model to build, so you're not going to have to worry about that too much. Whereas the M3 is made of quite a few pieces. Where's my water? It's hidden. I've hidden it. Ah, Clove. I sent some STLs on our Discord. Extra Firefly bits. Ooh. Ooh. Did you get the separate Thompson? Tesla Thompson? Because that's something that I moaned about several times. I think I titled the video on it that you don't get... That all of the Thompsons have two arms, like two hands molded on. And then all of the other, there's loads of hand options in the box on the Firefly sprues, but you can't use them because you can't have like a Tesla Thompson slung over the shoulder. Yes, I did. Good, thank you. That's a useful thing. Andre says maybe other weapons, but it's the suggested loadout for the starter missions. Yeah, okay, so you actually are following the guide. That's absolutely useful to get started using that. Something that I've noticed a lot is that a noob will show up on Reddit or on a Facebook group or whatever, and will say, "Oh, I've just got this set. What should I build?" And they will come up with a dozen completely different, very like competitive, skewed lists, and it's like, no, like for a beginner, no, you want a basic rifle squad first. You want to start sensible. We can go competitive later, but you really want to start with like a squad of 10, NCO with a submachine gun and a light machine gun team. That's your 10. Have that. Build an officer, build weapons teams as you get them. So yeah, build up the 12 models like that, but keep the sprues, because when you get more models later on, you can use the special weapons on the sprues with the bodies that you get in the future. Assuming you do. Separate Thompsons, yes, nice. Glad to help. Love it. We now have 2 completed Fireflies. I'm keeping this one here because I'm using it as a reference, because I want to make sure I get at least roughly consistent between them. Yeah. Pretty happy with how the like multiple layers of little highlights is working on them, because you get this kind of not fade. Fade's not the right term, but like patches of different brightnesses. It gives that kind of inconsistent fabric look, whereas something like a nice clean edge highlight makes it look like it's a metal or plastic or something like that, like a nice solid shape with a clean edge. Having all these little scratchy highlights that are inconsistent gives more of an impression of fabric. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but around the end of his trousers there, where they're tucked into the boot, some of the wash, I've used a black and brown wash here, some of the wash is actually pulled like on that edge, and it looks like he's got mud on his trousers. Sorry, pants, because he's an American. Yeah, so I have to talk about puttees again because I obsess over this. One of the officers, yeah, here you go. He's got these like greave things, not puttees, not gaiters. There's something else. Definitely the same sort of thing, but working slightly differently around his ankles. Whereas all of the other fireflies, they've just got their trousers bloused, with essentially the end of the trouser, the end of the trouser leg tucked into the boot. So the airborne, I have it in my head that the army uses, the American army in World War II used gaiters, and the American airborne bloused the trousers, so didn't have anything specific, just tuck the trousers into the top of the boots. Is that true? Is that correct? Because I don't know where I'm getting that information from. It's just in the back of my head somewhere. But if that is if that's a tiny element of detail that Warlord Games have thrown in on the Fireflies, because the Fireflies are airborne troops. That is kind of funny. And like, I'm the only nerd on the planet. There's like 3 other nerds on the planet who would notice something like that. Yuli, hey, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. We have 2 Fireflies finished now, and we are working on the 3rd. We will not be seeing Fireflies next week on our stream. Finally, we get to see something else. I do have to make a new thumbnail though, so I'm gonna find the biggest brush I can, because I'm not sure. No one's mentioned this, but I took the biggest brush I could find and held it up to one of the Fireflies for the thumbnail. It's not on this stream because this stream was about the games mainly. But on any of the painting streams, I've just put in that thumbnail of me holding that massive brush up to a Firefly, and I want to go further. I want to see if I can find an even bigger, sillier brush than that. Like if I can get like one of those, you know, the big brushes you paint walls with. If I can just get like an 80mm wall brush, I'm gonna love that. Andre says, Dog is insisting on walkies. Assume you'll end the stream at 9 as usual. Yes, I will. See you next time if I'm not back before then. Have a lovely walk and enjoy that. So absolutely no drama at all. And I will see you next time. So as we are coming dangerously close to the end of the stream, as Andre has mentioned, we'll see how many we get done today. Because I've got 20-something Fireflies here, and I'm not going to get them all done today. No chance of that. But I really want to paint something else on the streams for you guys. So I think next week's stream, no matter how many Fireflies are done or not done, next week's stream will be Style Trooping. And I'm going to blitz through the Style Troop, and I've got a paint scheme in mind that is really quick. Obviously, I won't finish the 17 Style Trooping that I have. I'm not going to finish that in one stream. But I'm going to do a decent blitz, get as much of that done as I can, and then I will move. I'll probably finish off the Fireflies off stream, or some of them, and then I'll come back after the Style Troop and to do the characters. So Roberta Wells, the Firefly officers. Yuli says, "I'll believe it when I see it," about being done with the Fireflies. Look, this one's done. This is the sample one we did, and now this is the second one. There's 2 Fireflies are finished. They're done. Need to keep that one there so that I can. I'm just using this one. This is the one I did first. I'm using this as a reference for the uniform. I think I did that on stream, didn't I? Where I painted this guy, this one, just up to final, all in one go. I want to find the time to just lay back, metaphorically lay back, and try some new techniques. Because when it comes to simple, boring, regular infantry, like bolt action infantry, I don't really care how good they look. They are gaming. They are tiddlywinks with delusions of grandeur. They are gaming pieces and nothing else. Because I don't look at my World War II infantry and go, wow, these are nicely painted. They are for wargaming. But I do like to look at my shelf and find the interesting models that I look at and go, ooh, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed painting that one. And I like how it came out, and I appreciate the techniques that I used and would like to try them again, that kind of thing. But I've got a couple of models that are sitting on my shelf staring into the back of my head right now. You can actually just see them. They're on this bookcase here behind me. That bookcase there is filled with unpainted models. And there's a few models there very specifically that I want to go super deep on painting. If anyone saw my... Yuli, I'll come back to that question, that's important. If anyone saw my video on the Gakota Skylord on Scorchwing, I think it's something like... I think the title of the video is something like, I have to paint this model, or I really wanted to paint this model, something like that. I want to do that video again, the same framework and stuff of that video, but with some of the models I've got up here. So Yuli asks, what techniques am I thinking of trying? So very specifically, there's a few techniques that I do want to try, but there's also a few techniques that I very specifically want to not use. Because nearly everything that I've painted in the last 3 years, almost every model numerically, I've painted using a wash. And I've gotten so quick at doing this style of painting. And the Fireflies are included in that. So I'll take a model, I'll airbrush the base color, whatever the most common color on the model is. Airbrush that, maybe a zenithal, maybe an undershot, depends on what the model is. Then I pick out all of the details in the different colors, and that's just for color separation. I'm not going too thin coats. I'm not giving any highlighting. I'm just one coat of every color on the model, and then bam, wash. Black wash, brown wash, a mix of the two. Sometimes I mix up my own wash of a different color, like a dark green wash or a blue, depending on what style it is, but it's always using a wash in some way. And what I want to do is avoid that. So what a wash does is it darkens the overall tone. It filters over the top, especially because I make my own washes, and that's one aspect of a wash that I use in my painting style, is that it's filtering out over the whole surface. but also like the main point of a wash is that it's sucking into the recesses and darkening them down. However, here's the thing, is that you can just paint a darker color into the recesses by hand, and you can paint a darker tone over the most of the surface by hand, and then you can pick out just the brightest highlights that you want to emphasize in the brightest color by hand. It takes longer to do, which is what the wash is for. It does all of that quickly. And when you're painting 30 infantry models for a war game, speed helps. Absolutely, I'm going to use a wash. I'm not going to turn my nose up and say I'm not using a wash. I'll absolutely use a wash when I'm painting infantry for a war game. But what I want to do is I want to go in and very deliberately paint in every single brushstroke of a model by myself. No washes or any kind of similar techniques. Not even really... I was about to say dry brushing, but I don't really use dry brushing that much anyway. So I do have a video where I did that. I would say recently, but it's like a million years ago now. The Furiosa model I painted. I didn't use a wash on her. And that is... deliberately painting in the shadows. I mixed, for the base coat, I mixed in black with or a dark color with each of the base coats, so that I start off with a very, very dark color and then built up to the mid-tone and built further into the highlights. Although I think on Furiosa I actually started with the mid-tone and painted in the shadows, but you can do either way. One particular model that I have, and I think I've already shown you this, Yuli, is the Dranya from Moonstone. It's like it's a shape-shifting fox lady, where like half of her face is a fox and half of her face is human. And that, I really, really like the idea of painting that with a very distinct blending style. And I don't really use much in the way of blending styles. So I can use... it'll be nice to practice possibly wet blending, possibly feathering, possibly a mix of multiple different things. Start with one technique, end with another technique. I can kind of throw things around. But essentially I want to do the same style of video as I did for the Gakota Skylord with Dranya. And then there are a couple of others that might see a similar, not as long a video, but a similar style of video. And yeah, being deliberate, what do people call it? People have a name for it. Yudi says characters are good for practicing painting with no washes. Yeah, absolutely. Painterly. I've heard people say it's very painterly. In the and from what I understand, that just means that you've done it all yourself rather than using washes, rather than using contrast paints. I don't actually own any contrast paints because it's not really. I'm not turning my nose up at them. If I get one, I'll use it and I'll test it out, see how it is. But it just isn't my style. It's another tool in the toolbox, and they do have their uses, of course. But yeah, I just don't have any experience with them, so I can't really say. That's 3. Oh, good lord. It's taken a long time to do each one. It really is taking a long time. It's about 10 minutes per just to do this highlighting step. So what I'll do, it'll push us over after 9 o'clock, but I will paint one more which will take us up to 4, so not even the minimum squad size. Take us up to 4, and then I will end the stream. But next stream, I said that I would be painting Style Trooper, so I will paint Style Trooper next week. And I might come back. The thing is, now that I've said washes, my plan for the Style Trooping is definitely very much using washes. But yeah, next week I'll start painting the Style Trooping. I might continue painting the green of the Fireflies off camera, off stream. But then I will come back to the Fireflies for the characters. So the Firefly Officer and 3 of them, and the 2 Roberta's Wellses. Thank you, Clove. So I will be out of frame of the camera, as I usually am. I don't know. Feels good to be close to the Fireflies. I've actually really enjoyed painting them. Kind of, it has taken, what, 3 months? When was my first Firefly video, Firefly stream? Because that's gotta be. I've done at least 6 streams for the Fireflies, and I've interrupted them for like battle report streams as well several times. It's got to be 2 months. It's probably more like 3 months, right? Yuli says, if you ever decide to do a contrast style paints, Army Painter makes the best ones. Not a big fan on their war paints personally, but the metallics and speed paints are best in class. When it comes to metallics, I'm generally leaning towards Pro Acryl. And generally speaking, I am a fan of Pro Acryl. Most of the time, I will use what absolutely ever paint I have. And all of my paints behind me in that pot are of every brand you can think of. And I do have Army Painter in there. I've got some old Army Painter yellows, which is a bit of a shame because famously their early yellows were bad. I haven't had... They've reformulated a lot of their stuff from what I've heard, and I have not had any since then. First friendly stream was April. So yeah, 3 months. Thereabouts. Maybe even more than 3 months. Good grief. Good grief. That's... But that is because I am deliberately painting these specific models on the stream. As we go into future sets, I'm doing the Style Trooper next, but going future after that. Would you be more interested in, this is a question for everyone in chat, would you be more interested in me doing a big mob of 20 like this that does take us 3 or 4 months to get through? Or is it more interesting to do a smaller squad of maybe 3 or 5? British Automaton, Mark IIs, Ursus, Shrek Wolf and stuff like that would come in smaller numbers. Because that way we'd probably spend a bit longer per model. but then we'd finish them up in probably several streams still, but fewer than 3 months. Close says small squad of 3 or 5. Yeah, because this really has been for 3 months just painting the same squad. I mean, technically this is 4 squads, right, of Fireflies. I mean, you could make this 6 order dice. Actually, if you were silly about it, you could get 9 order dice out of this if you put each of the officers in separately, but that is being silly. I didn't even read the year. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, okay. Well done. Good job. That's the 3rd joke that I've missed this stream. I'm obviously concentrating too much on being a presenter rather than working out all of your obscure jokes in chat. Yeah, first Firefly stream, April 2007. When were the original Fireflies released, the metal ones? Because I don't even think they were out in 2007. How is that going? Yudi says vote for smaller squads too. Yeah, I think I will try that. I'll do the Style Trooper and then I'll do the officers that I've got here, the Firefly officers, and then we'll pick a smaller squad for the streams after that. Okay, we now have 4 completed Fireflies. And that is terrible lighting. Yeah, I wish I hadn't bothered now. I was going to show you the Fireflies and they're all in darkness. Right. It was a nice idea. It didn't work. Oh, that one I have to keep separate because that's the first one we did. I want to make sure everyone matches him. But now we have 3 more, all completed. So I will wrap up the stream. If anyone has any questions, any comments, any discussions to be had, please post them now and I will try to answer them before I finish. We have, I've said several times, I will just say it quickly again, Style Trooper next week on the stream. Starting those off. We have also got, well underway, and most of the way edited, is building the automaton platoon. So I've only got the instructions with me here at the moment, and I've just dropped them all over the floor. But I've got the Mark II, the Mark II Commander, and the Mark I automated infantry in the platoon box for the automatons. So the video for next week will be building those. Just talking about assembling them. A little bit of kit bashing, not too much. Sorry, a little bit of conversion, not too much, but just basic assembly for those. Clove says that the Metal Fireflies were released in 2017, according to Google. No questions, just check the Discord. I'll check the Discord after the stream, yeah. Yuli says the original edition of Conflict came out in 2016, so the Fireflies would... Yeah, so if 2017 might be correct, because that would have been the next year. And then... So if that's 2017... and the new ones were released in 2015. That's only 8 years apart. Not bad. Right. Yeah, knocking camera. 4 Fireflies. 4 Fireflies finished so far. Only another 2,000 million more to go. Yeah. Next week's video will be assembling the Automaton platoon. Next week's stream will be painting, or starting painting, on the Stormtrooper. But for now, I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you to everyone in chat for popping past. We've had lots of discussion today, and that's been lovely. And I will see you all next time.